SpongeBob SquarePants smiles through everything. Getting fired, getting humiliated, getting ignored, manipulated, forgotten, the smile never drops. The enthusiasm never fades. He wakes up every morning with the same explosive joy and goes to bed the same way, no matter what the day did to him. Most people file that under cartoon logic. Happy character, happy show, do not think about it too hard. But there is a theory that has been circulating in fan spaces for years, and once you actually map it against the specific evidence the show provides, it starts to feel like one of the strongest interpretations of the character the show ever gave us. Even accounting for cartoon exaggeration, the argument holds. SpongeBob is not simply happy. He has trained himself to perform happiness so completely that he cannot access anything else. His optimism is not a personality trait. It is a coping mechanism built on top of a life that, viewed this way, can be read as quietly unsettling in a way children's television rarely allows itself to be. Welcome to Cartoonology. Here is the case, built entirely from what the show actually put on screen. The parents who are almost never there. SpongeBob has parents. Harold and Margaret SquarePants appear in the show, are named, are voiced, and are treated as real characters when they show up. They live in a different part of Bikini Bottom. They are alive. They are reachable. They appear in roughly a handful of episodes across the entire classic run. In a show that produced 60 episodes across 3 seasons, 2 characters who are supposed to be SpongeBob's closest blood relatives are effectively absent from his life. And SpongeBob is an adult. Adults not living with their parents is normal. That is not the point. The point is that the show does not build his emotional life around his family at all. His core relationships are not parental. The people he turns to, the connections that define his day-to-day existence, are a neighbor who hates him, a best friend who is unreliable, and an employer he is emotionally dependent on. The family structure that most people draw stability from is simply not present in the frame. This is not how the show treats other parental figures. Mr. Krabs has Pearl, a relationship the show gives real attention to across multiple episodes. Sandy references her Texas roots and family background in ways that give her a sense of where she came from. When SpongeBob's parents do appear, the episodes do not spend time on the relationship itself. There is no texture to how Harold and Margaret interact with their son. They show up, the plot happens, they leave. No callbacks, no letters, no phone calls referenced in passing. For a character the show asks you to care about deeply, the people who should be his foundational relationships exist mostly off-screen. What that leaves SpongeBob with, in terms of actual daily emotional life, is a set of relationships he did not choose and cannot leave. His neighborhood is his entire world, and that world is worth looking at carefully. What fills that gap is where things start to get genuinely uncomfortable. Patrick is not actually SpongeBob's friend. The show presents Patrick Star as SpongeBob's best friend. The two are inseparable across the classic era. SpongeBob calls him his best friend repeatedly and means it completely every single time. Patrick forgets SpongeBob exists in multiple episodes. In New Student Starfish, Patrick transfers to Mrs. Puff's boating school, and within the episode is openly dismissing SpongeBob in front of others to protect his own social standing. He throws SpongeBob under the bus without hesitation and shows minimal guilt about it. In the Fry Cook games, Patrick and SpongeBob enter a direct competition, and Patrick turns on him with genuine hostility, not playful rivalry, actual aggression. The episode frames it as sports comedy, but the specific cruelty Patrick directs at SpongeBob during that episode goes further than competition usually does. In Patrick's Smart Pants, when Patrick temporarily becomes intelligent after finding a piece of coral that attaches to his head, his first move is to abandon SpongeBob entirely because he considers him beneath his new intellectual level. He replaces him with Sandy and treats SpongeBob's attempts at connection as an embarrassment. Across these episodes, a pattern shows up that is hard to explain away as just cartoon reset logic. Patrick does not drift away from SpongeBob because they grow apart. He abandons SpongeBob specifically when something better or more convenient appears. The friendship is conditional on Patrick having nothing else going on. When Patrick has options, SpongeBob is not among them. SpongeBob's response to this, every time, is to forgive completely and reinvest in the friendship with the same intensity as before. No adjusted expectations, no guarded trust, full emotional commitment, reset to the beginning, episode after episode. It reads more like a pattern of one-sided loyalty than anything resembling a balanced friendship. He keeps reinvesting no matter what happens, as if the alternative of having no one is worse than having someone unreliable. There is also the specific way SpongeBob talks about Patrick. He does not describe the friendship in terms of what Patrick does for him. He describes it in terms of what Patrick means to him. The distinction matters. A person who is getting something real from a friendship describes it differently from a person who has decided the friendship is valuable and is holding on to that decision regardless of the evidence. SpongeBob holds on to Patrick with a grip that does not loosen when Patrick gives him every reason to loosen it. The best friend situation is rough. The neighbor situation is worse. Living next to someone who hates you. Squidward Tentacles does not merely dislike SpongeBob. He finds SpongeBob's existence specifically offensive. His reactions across the classic era range from mild irritation to open cruelty, and the show frames most of it as comedy. What makes this uncomfortable under the theory's lens is geography. SpongeBob and Squidward are neighbors. They have been neighbors long enough, as established in the first episode, that Squidward's exhaustion with SpongeBob has deep history. SpongeBob cannot leave his own home without being in range of active hostility from the person who lives closest to him. His home, the place that is supposed to be the one environment a person controls, opens directly onto someone who has made clear they wish he were somewhere else. And SpongeBob keeps trying. Across dozens of episodes, SpongeBob makes genuine attempts to connect with Squidward, brings him food, tries to include him, treats him with warmth he has never once received back at the same level. In Christmas Who, SpongeBob's enthusiasm for the holiday and his desire to share it extends to Squidward, even after Squidward publicly mocks him for believing in Santa Claus in front of the entire neighborhood. SpongeBob does not retaliate. He does not withdraw. He doubles down on the warmth. In Employee of the Month, SpongeBob and Squidward are thrown into direct competition at work, and SpongeBob's response, even under pressure, is to look for moments of connection. The competitive instinct most people would feel is overlaid, in SpongeBob's case, with a persistent need to have Squidward approve of him. SpongeBob knows Squidward does not like him. The show makes clear he is aware of this. He does not stop trying to connect anyway. It does not read like confidence. It reads more like someone who has learned to keep reaching regardless of the return, because some version of connection, even one-sided, feels better than the alternative. And the alternative, for SpongeBob, appears to be a home life with no meaningful relationships within walking distance at all. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. What Mr. Krabs is actually doing. Eugene Krabs is framed as a comedic villain light. His greed is the joke. He pinches pennies. He makes bad decisions for money. He is cartoonishly cheap. The show plays it for laughs across the entire classic era. Strip the comedy framing and look at what the actual employment relationship involves. Mr. Krabs pays SpongeBob wages that are implied to be extremely low across multiple episodes. In episodes dealing with SpongeBob's paycheck, the amounts are treated as comically small even within the show's own logic. In Squid on Strike, the labor conditions at the Krusty Krab are framed as genuinely exploitative. Squidward organizes a strike, and SpongeBob is the only employee who cannot bring himself to participate, not because he disagrees with the grievances, but because the idea of being outside the Krusty Krab for any reason feels unbearable to him. He crosses his own picket line. He apologizes to Mr. Krabs for having been part of it at all. SpongeBob has worked at the Krusty Krab long enough that his employment is practically part of the building's identity, and he is still in an entry-level position with no advancement and no job security shown at any point. The show implies he has held this job for years. The job has not changed. His position in it has not changed. His devotion to it has not changed either, which is the part that the theory focuses on. In several episodes, Mr. Krabs threatens to fire SpongeBob, or actually does fire him temporarily. What the show does not dwell on, but what the theory asks you to notice, is SpongeBob's response every time this happens. He does not get frustrated. He does not feel undervalued. He completely falls apart. Whether intentional or not on Krabs' part, the dynamic creates a clear dependency. SpongeBob's identity becomes tied to the job in a way that goes well beyond normal workplace attachment. His job is not just a job. It functions as the primary answer to the question of whether he is worth something. The Krusty Krab is the one place where SpongeBob's specific skill is visibly valued, where he has a defined role and a clear purpose. Take that away, and the evidence across multiple episodes suggests there is not much left underneath it. The repeated cycle of SpongeBob doing everything right, receiving minimal reward, and still treating the Krusty Krab as the center of his emotional universe lines up with exactly what that kind of dependency produces. The driving test situation sits right next to this, and it points somewhere even more specific. The driving test is not about driving. SpongeBob has failed his boating test more times than any character in the show can reasonably count. Mrs. Puff is traumatized by the experience of teaching him. In No Free Rides, she literally falsifies his exam results to end the cycle. The running gag is that SpongeBob is simply an incompetent driver. Here is what makes that reading incomplete. SpongeBob is not incompetent at other things. He is an extraordinarily skilled cook. The Krabby Patty formula works because of his specific talent, and the show treats his cooking ability as genuinely exceptional. He jellyfishes with precision and athleticism. He builds things, fixes things, and navigates complex social situations with emotional intelligence that most characters in the show do not possess. In Suds, he manages his own illness with enough awareness to know when something is wrong. In Survival of the Idiots, he survives conditions that flatten Patrick entirely. His inability to drive is selective and total in a way that his other skills are not. SpongeBob behind the wheel becomes erratic and panicked, not just bad, but specifically destabilized under pressure. Mrs. Puff has described the experience as terrifying across multiple episodes. She does not describe other students this way. SpongeBob can clearly understand the rules of driving when he is not actually doing it. He knows the theory, he knows the procedure, he can discuss it correctly. The knowledge is there. Something else happens when the test starts. It reads like extreme performance anxiety, a complete breakdown under pressure that overrides competence entirely, which can be read as something deeper when you consider what the test represents. A formal qualification, an external proof that he is capable, the one credential that would grant him a kind of independence and validation the rest of his life does not provide. Every other measure of SpongeBob's worth is informal. His boss values him, but will fire him without hesitation. His friends love him until they do not. The boating license would be something official, something that could not be taken back. He has been failing for what the show implies are years. He keeps going back every time. That does not read like simple incompetence. It reads like someone for whom the stakes of a single test have become so loaded that passing it has stopped being possible. The smile that does not move. Go back to the beginning of the theory. SpongeBob smiles through everything. In Graveyard Shift, he is genuinely terrified but pushes through. In Rockabye Bivalve, he is visibly exhausted and overwhelmed, while playing the role of a working parent alongside Patrick, handling domestic labor and emotional management simultaneously. And he keeps going without complaint until the situation reaches a breaking point the episode resolves through comedy. In SB-129, he is trapped, alone in the future, with no one around him, and his response to the isolation is to keep performing cheerfulness until it breaks. And it does break in that episode, in a way the show does not usually let him break. He screams. The scream is played as a joke. Then, when everything resets, he is fine again. The emotional range SpongeBob is allowed across the classic era is narrow in a specific direction. He can be sad, but only briefly. He can be scared, but it gets played for laughs. Genuine, sustained distress is not something the show lets him carry for long before the reset kicks in. And SpongeBob himself seems to drive that reset from the inside. The recovery is too fast, too complete, too automatic. In Rockabye Bivalve, when SpongeBob finally reaches his limit after doing everything while Patrick contributes nothing, his breakdown lasts for a single scene before resolution arrives. In I Was a Teenage Gary, when SpongeBob is accidentally transformed into a snail, the horror of the situation is treated as comedy, and by the next episode, SpongeBob has no memory of it. The show keeps erasing the weight of what happens to him, and SpongeBob seems to do the same thing internally, episode after episode. People who grow up in environments where expressing difficult emotions does not produce good outcomes learn to compress the timeline between feeling something and performing recovery. The feeling happens, it gets processed in private, or not at all, and then the performance of fine resumes, because fine is what works. SpongeBob resets faster than any other character in the show, faster even than the cartoon format strictly requires. What Bikini Bottom actually is. Pull all of it together. Whether intentional or not, the pattern is there across documented episodes, consistently enough across 3 seasons that it is hard to explain away as coincidence. A character whose emotional life is not built around family, despite his parents being alive and nearby, whose closest friendship follows a pattern of one-sided loyalty he keeps reinvesting in regardless of the return, who lives next to someone who has spent years making clear that his existence is an imposition, who works in an environment where, whatever Krabs intends, his identity has become entirely dependent on keeping the job, who cannot pass the one formal test that would grant him external validation. validation, who smiles through all of it, every day, with a consistency that starts to feel like something other than simple joy when you look at it directly. The show never frames any of this as tragedy. It is comedy. The abandonment is funny. The cruelty from Squidward is funny. The paycheck jokes are funny. SpongeBob's breakdown when threatened with losing his job is funny. The show was not trying to write a dark character study. Steven Hillenburg built Bikini Bottom as a warm, absurdist world full of characters he genuinely loved. But the theory does not require the show to have intended any of this. It only requires the pattern to be there. SpongeBob functions. He shows up. He does his job better than anyone else in the building. He loves his friends with a completeness they do not return. He greets every single day with the same unbroken enthusiasm, and he extends that enthusiasm to people who have given him no reason to. The darkest reading of SpongeBob SquarePants is that the optimism is not the foundation of who he is. It can be seen as a system built on top of a foundation that was never stable enough to stand on. The kind of system people develop when the alternative, feeling the full weight of their actual situation, is something they cannot afford to do. The joy is real in the moments it happens. The love is genuine when he feels it. But the relentlessness of it, the inability to dim it even when everything around him earns a dimmer response, lines up with how people cope when performing okay becomes the only option available to them. Bikini Bottom is a bright, colorful, funny place. SpongeBob keeps it that way. The question the theory asks is what it costs him to do that every single day, and whether anyone in Bikini Bottom has ever actually stopped to ask. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.